Well, this is a very special exhibition tonight that we are opening, and I'd like to thank you all again for joining us. A very special exhibition because this represents the first ever gallery-wide retrospective exhibition that Two Rivers Gallery has produced. So that's quite special and noteworthy. It's also a very important exhibition because it enables us to draw focus to the work of an important regional artist, not just to a single body of work, but to look at an entire career's worth of work. And I know that a lot of you are very familiar with Annerose Georgeson and her work. Annerose, of course, has had solo exhibitions here at Two Rivers Gallery. She's participated in numerous group exhibitions over the year. And it's always a privilege to work with her. It's a great honor to be able to collect all of this work together, representing 2 decades worth of work. In fact, slightly more than 2 decades worth of work, and we're very pleased to be able to do that. It's a great exhibition. I think it looks like a great exhibition. And I have to say that, of course, it's because of the wonderful artwork that we have collected here, but I do also have to acknowledge the very hard work of Megan Hunter-Gauthier, Griffith Aaron-Baker, and Yash Now, who have been the exhibition team for this exhibition and who have worked very hard over the last 2 weeks or so to install this exhibition. We're very pleased indeed to have Annerose Georgeson here to offer an artist talk this evening. And so without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in offering a very warm and congratulatory welcome to Annerose Georgeson.
Thank you all so much for coming and helping me celebrate here. It's wonderful to see you all. And thank you to the gallery for inviting me to show my work, and to my friends and my art colleagues for supporting me all this time. Thanks so much. You have no idea how much this all means to me. I intend to go through the various bodies of work that I've done just quickly, and then I'll linger on the last part of the work that I'm still working on now. So the first body of work was called Knowing Where You Are, and I set that up at the old art gallery up on 15th. And it's a group of artworks that is sort of self-portraits. So a lot of it has representations of myself. And I've included drawing and photography in all of these because that's what I was most interested in then, before I became a painter. And this one here is just me sitting under a tree in the bush. Right, this is where my house is. You can see the little arrow going down to my place. You can see we live in the bush. It's an old picture because those are my kids in the foreground there, and they're all adults now. This place has changed a lot, and I see that throughout my career, I've just documented the small and large changes that have happened to this place. And you'll see more of them as we go on. This is another picture or painting in the gallery. It's me climbing trees, something that I used to like to do. I don't do it anymore. Anyway, I still might. Part of my practice, mostly on, for a while it was off, but now I'm back in the swing of it, has been to draw every day. It's just sort of part of who I am. Some of the drawings are like this, just sort of doodles. Some are more involved. But anyway, I like to draw, and I feel most myself when I'm drawing. I sort of feel like I know how to do it. The painting is still pretty exploratory anyway. And the photography is another part of who I am. So here I'm exploring the patterns in the forest, still doing that. So I find that I've done a whole lot of things, and I just keep coming back to them over and over again. I sort of loop back, do something for a while, and then, here I'm doing it again. This is another piece from the Knowing Where You Are series of work, and you can see how it leads to the next group of work, which is the language-based stuff. Those little marks at the top of the artwork are the little green bits at the bottom of the dandelion bud. They're sort of the little petals down there, and I've just isolated those and spread them out. And you can sort of see how they make a bit of a language. Well, this is pretty exciting to me. I spent quite a lot of time on that. At the bottom, there's a whole long line of them. This led to the next group of work, which is called A Secret Language. And I spent a long time doing this, sort of looking at the different plant shapes and finding scripts in them. And then I made photocopy transfer artworks and found more letter shapes in those. I made a whole bunch of those. I made up scripts. This is just a lot of fun, coding and decoding. And it's called art. And then I found scripts like this, and a lot of you are familiar with this. This is the writing that's left behind by the pine bark beetles. And there's some drawings from those photographs. And that leads to my next group of work, which is about the mountain pine beetle epidemic. And it's what happened to our place when the pine beetles came. This is a photo of our land. It was out the back window of my house. And you can see there was just a wall of trees back there. There's my house with the wall of trees around it. And anyway, pretty soon I was living in a clear cut because we had to log off all those dead trees. How it was quite a shift from this wall of trees to the clear cut. But all is not lost. Nature is all good, and the trees are coming back again, of course. And this led to a whole new group of work, which was called Hope Persists. And the thing that was left over after the pine beetles left was a lot of pine cones. So I did quite a bit of art about pine cones, and I've looped back to that again. This is just a photograph of a pine cone close up, and then I've blocked out all the other stuff, and just left the little ends of the bracts of the pine cones to isolate them. And it just is so cool how they lift and rise. It's like a magic trick. And it worked every time I kept doing it. It just seemed so hopeful to me how those pine cone pieces lifted and rose in such a hopeful message. And at the same time, you can see this is sort of the first time that I've put landscape into my artwork. Before, it's always been fairly abstract. And I was wondering why this was, and it's probably because it's logging those trees off has given me a lot more perspective. There's a lot more to see instead of just the pine trunks right in front of me. I can see a landscape view. So I did a little series of work on the road where I lived called Landaluza Road. It's just small everyday views of where I am. One of the things that happened after the pine beetles came in was the annual allowable cut in the bush was raised a lot, so there were a lot more cut blocks. And I did a series of work about cut blocks. It's just where the logged off bits of land. There was this satellite photo of all the cut blocks in Prince George, and I was quite amazed at how many there were. And I really like the patterns of those blocks. So, there's a forest road going out to the bush. There's how a cut block really looks from the side of the road. And I just did a bunch of work on the shapes of those cut blocks. I thought they were. And George pointed out to me that there's sort of similarities to that and the pinecone bracts. They sort of seem to float a bit too. So I hadn't noticed that before, but yeah, they do relate. So there's a good thing about reviewing your work with the curator. There's always new insights. This piece, and I've tried to do this with lots of my artwork, this is really just exploring music and trying to find rhythm in the things I see. Because it almost has music, all the visual stuff almost has music to it. Definitely has rhythm. And then this brings me to the next group of work, field notes. And it's just sort of views of the forest, the things that change, small and large. Some of those were forest fire, and then the new growth that comes out of the forest fire. It's just amazingly beautiful. I'm always stunned by how good it looks. There's a whole new little forest coming up underneath those burnt trees. And then that's a painting I made about that. I spent a few years doing these kind of works, and that's the series called Field Notes. Then this is a series called Tapestry, and it's just about the tangle and chaos, sort of as you get a little bit more into the bush. It's about the branches that mess up your hair when you're trying to walk in there. And so I really also like that, chaos and tangle, and I've come back to that. That's sort of what I'm working on again right now. So that's the Tapestry group. And then I got some funding from the BC Arts Council to do a series of really large paintings, sort of one painting on each aspect of change in the forest. And this one here is just the regrowth after a forest fire. This one here was about farming, and there's other ones on logging, and this is a clear cut, and then a tangle of underbrush or of forest floor stuff in the foreground there, foretelling the forest floor work. I live on a farm, and the produce that we produce now is hay, and so I did a series of photos about hay. Again, there's all that tangle and chaos in the crossed lines of the hay, still sort of looping back to the same things again. And the nest got in there with the hay stuff because it's sort of a tangle too. When I was doing the Forest Chronicles, I saw that one of the changes in the forest was logging. So I went with my brother to the bush, and my brother is a logging contractor, and we spent a couple days in the bush just looking, and I took a lot of photos and then I thought I'd make one painting, but I made a lot more anyway of all the things that I saw in the bush, the machines, and there are those paintings there. And it's, again, really tangled and chaotic and messy, but I just find so much beauty in it. And then my brother one day asked if I wanted to go out and see the wildfire, and I was like, yes. So we went and spent a day out in the bush watching the fire burn up one of his cut blocks with the logs on it, which was pretty horrible, but also pretty majestic. It was really scary, but it was so beautiful. So I made a whole bunch of paintings about that, called Wildfire. And that's these paintings here. And then I went back, not to the same site, but to another fire site, and collected some burnt pine cones, because I just felt like I had to draw pine cones again. And I did a whole lot of those, and we have 4 of them here in the gallery. And they're sort of funny. They open after they're burnt, and so they're still red inside. And now I'm working on this new series of work called The Forest Floor. And there's my backyard after it was logged. Just about the only thing there is pine cones, but also you can see a whole bunch of kinnick in the background. This was a photograph of the ditch, and as we were going by, and I made a group of those small paintings at the back. It's just the tangle of stuff, all that mess and tangle and chaos. It's so exciting to me. And that's 2 of these little paintings. This maybe can show you a little bit of my thought process as I'm doing the forest floor. It's just a photograph when I was snowshoeing of the weeds coming through the snow. And I don't know if it looks like this to you, but to me that just looks like a drawing. It's just a drawing made by nature, just for me to look at. It's just there, laid out at my feet. There's another one. And it just keeps going and going. Every step you take, there's a new drawing. So it's pretty hard to reproduce this stuff because it's so beautiful. But anyway, that's my job, so I try it. There's another one. It's just a little bit of kinnick with almost obscured under the snow. And then sometimes there's like this in the fall. It's just majestic. It's just one carpet laid for us, one after the other. This is how I go about making those forest floor drawings. This is all stumps in my backyard. Those used to be the pine trees, and now they're stumps. But you see there's trees growing up there already. Anyway, I just pick one of those stumps, and I sit on it, and I draw what's in front of my feet. And so there's what's in front of my feet. Sometimes it's what's right there, close below my feet. And then that's the kind of drawing I come up with. This is a little bit more complicated in the fall. It's what's in September. It's more beautiful, but that's my drawing. I don't know if you can see them. Yeah. And so most days when it was good weather, I just would be sitting out there on the stump drawing, making a drawing. It takes maybe, 15 minutes if it's not. Sometimes there's mosquitoes, sometimes there's rain, sometimes there's ants in the stumps. It's just pretty awkward, but whatever. It's just what I do. And it's very meditative. I sit out there and I just feel really at peace. Sometimes there's chickadees. So this is one of the, I did quite a few of these last summer and the summer before. And then during the winter, I thought, hey, these would actually be pretty good to paint from. So I started to make paintings from these. And this is the kind of paintings that they turned out to be. I just looked at the drawings and tried to make them in paint like that. This one here has quite a few different layers of drawings on it. It's not just one. This one is just one. It's sort of just mapping what I see there on the ground. And there's the painting that came from that drawing. There's bed straw and little sticks and pine cones, some rabbit poop, pine needles, like just whatever there is, just put it in. That's sort of what it looks like, and it's a huge challenge to draw because there's just way too much of it, but that's okay. You can just select stuff. So that's what I selected. And then on the side, you can see I sort of wrote it down too to help me figure out what it was later. And then that's what I painted from it. And now, at this time, I'm still painting with acrylic, and I'm starting to get pretty frustrated because the acrylic is drying way too fast. Anyway, thank goodness for my friends because they suggest things that should be obvious. Anyway, I switched to oil paint, which is, this is still acrylic. But this is oil paint, and I'm very happy to now be using oil paint. It stays fluid a lot longer, and it's just way more workable, and I don't know, I just like it better. And there's another one in oil paint. There's more of the forest floor. This is George asked me to select some that would show the process. So this is sort of similar to where I was when I did that one drawing. It's not quite the right location, and then that's the drawing that's from it, and the resulting painting. That's 𝘎𝘢𝘵𝑗𝑚 and twin flowers. And then this is sort of maybe gives you some insight into it too. It's like a mess and a tangle and chaos, and I even wrote that down in the sketchbook at one point. I think I remember what it is. It's like there's so much chaos out, but really there's new life and new growth and such beauty. And that's in amongst all that stuff, there's in the middle of that is a very small little strawberry flower. And I think, so what am I looking for in all this chaos? And maybe that's what it is, that little tiny flower showing us there's always some beauty in no matter what the chaos is. There's another drawing of pine stumps. Sometimes I'm sitting on the stumps and nothing at my feet is inspiring me. And so I look up just a little bit higher because there's a lot of little or little pine trees growing up. And then I end up making paintings that are not quite bird's eye view, but they're still from the stump view. And I'll just show you a series of these paintings that I've done on this summer on these, based on these drawings. There's strawberry leaves and rose bushes. And these are all with oil paint now. This is just the weeds. I was waiting for somebody at the airport and their plane was late, so I went out and just drew what was on the ground in front of the airport. And it was a bunch of weeds. But they're beautiful. This is a little bit, so later on in the summer, stuff grows and gets taller. So it's a lot harder to get that bird's eye view. So I started doing quite a bit of plants at sort of maybe mouse view or worm view. And that's a rose bush and a bunch of poplar leaves with leaf miner in them. This is another side. These are terrible photos. I should not have put these in here. This one and the next one. They're taken with my phone. But anyway. And that's the wildflower bouquet that's on the ad. And we've come to the end. Thank you very much.